Hi and welcome to the Spanish Error 44. I have been in this place before. This is Ciudad Valdeluz in Spain, about 50 to 70 kilometers from Madrid, depending on how you count it. And it's a city that has been built right before the onset of the 2008 economic crisis. A crisis that has ravaged the real estate market here in Spain to unbelievable levels. And this ravaging is especially apparent in a place like this. A place that was supposed to house some 30,000 people and in the end only houses some 4,000 to 6,000 people, depending on the estimates. Ciudad Valdeluz is lined with empty streets, just like the one behind me, and it's lined with weeds, roads, things that were supposed to be built to house people. But because of the crisis, this has been an area that was never finished. And the developer here, Real Urbis, which was building this, basically went bust overnight. The way Real Urbis went bust is actually important as well, because the mortgage payments haven't been done in any way. And since mortgage was not paid, the banks have overtaken the real estate that was here and basically ended up with an influx of worthless houses, worthless apartments that they had to get rid of somehow. And because they had to get rid of them, they decided to sell them at deeply discounted prices, around 60% of their market value, sometimes in bulk, so in sets of apartments. And because of that, the prices on the market went down even lower, plummeting to an unknown level to all the investors in Spain. Now, I've been to Ciudad Valdeluz a couple of times before. First time, I didn't take my drone, and I barely shot anything. And the second time, I was busted by terrible weather. It was raining and it was windy. I couldn't record anything. So I am back, and I am back to see what has changed in the last 2 years. And in the last 2 years, to be honest, not much has evolved here. The situation is roughly the same. They started building the school, I think, and this is about it. All the streets that were empty are still empty, and the number of people is still extremely low. So, as I have said previously, not much has changed in Ciudad Valdeluz, and one of the prime examples is the area I am standing in now. This is, from what I can see at least, a park, and right behind it, the unfinished church. And, the park is unfinished as ever. There are basically no roads made, there is an empty pool, and this is about it. But see, the thing that many people forget about when they discuss the crisis and when they discuss the topic of Spain is that the crisis was not only an economical mishap, it was also a terrible situation for the people and something that caused a lot of despair in families. You have to understand that when the crisis hit and when people were paying mortgages for what now were worthless houses, they often not only lost their will to live, they lost their houses as well. And without that, there were many suicides connected to evictions. And first of all, and most importantly, there was a huge eviction crisis with some saying between 300 to 500 people being evicted every single day from their homes in Spain. This was the most ravaging of all the consequences because personal lives were at stake and families were being destroyed every single day, not only by the economical situation, but by the prosperity that has led to it that was in the years prior. And that prosperity was something that many people took for granted in Spain, and in fact, in all of Europe. And this is something that is especially evident right now to people like me. If you're Polish, you will notice when you're in Poland that the country is now going through a phase very similar to that of Spain in the 2000s. We are building a massive amount of houses. And remember, Spain was overproducing houses at an incredible rate during the 2000s, at a rate that was unsupportable. And this is what many are saying about Poland right now. And this resemblance is striking. And if you come here and if you look at the effects that this has had on the economy, it is troublesome and you feel, well, in danger when you're a Pole like me. And it is a very, well, unnerving situation, I would say, the least. Especially when I stand here in Ciudad Valdeluz. And when I imagine that some of the cities that we are now building in the middle of fields, exactly like this one, well, it doesn't bode well for Poland. That's about as much as I can say. Nowhere is the state of Ciudad Valdeluz more apparent than in the city center, a place that was partially finished, and partially finished it is. As you can see behind me, this is an unfinished supermarket. And even though there is one down the road, which is a small one, this is where the city life was supposed to be in. There is a change since the last 2 years that I have been here. They have put up a fence so that you cannot enter it. That's pretty much the only difference in this area. To be really honest, Ciudad Valdeluz is basically a notice of caution, something that points that it's important to watch out how you invest and where you invest if you want to make the best possible decisions. And if not for this place, who knows in what situation would Spain be right now in this day and age, in a place where such catastrophes wouldn't happen, or in a place that would get to experience them very soon. Something to note as well, Ciudad Valdeluz is actually a pretty quaint town minus the abandoned supermarket. If you look at the buildings, it looks perfectly normal, and it only takes a turn around. We're just taking the wrong turn. As a matter of fact, for you to see the real Ciudad Valdeluz, the Ciudad Valdeluz that is abandoned and forsaken, it's not going to be ever finished in that sense. So yeah, it's an eerie sign, an eerie place, and an eerie reminder of the old crisis. So this is an interesting thing. I have probably raised the most commotion here since I got here amongst the ducks, which have joyfully left the water to join me in recording a video about Ciudad Valdeluz. So amongst the 4,000 to 5,000 people that live here, there is quite a lot of these ducks that are a local speciality, as it seems, because there are signs warning you that they are walking through the road. So yeah, you gotta watch out for the inhabitants of Ciudad Valdeluz. When driving through Ciudad Valdeluz, you cannot get the sense different than the fact that the city had such potential. It had potential to be one of the better smaller cities around Madrid, but well, the situation that I have described over and over again has basically made it a hellhole that you cannot get out of. Yeah, the views are idyllic. You have a park, you have a golf course, and you have probably friendly neighbors and things, but first of all, no high school, just an elementary school, one supermarket, one small cafe, and one small Chinese market. It's not all you could want from life, right? And well, the problem is that Spain has suffered such a crisis where this was not just one city, it was hundreds. Hundreds of them were being built, some of them were abandoned completely, and some of them were abandoned in part. And the ones that were not abandoned completely are luckily all around Madrid. And one of them is Cesena Nuevo, a place that I will head to next. and show it to you on the Spanish Error 44. Call it whatever, season 2. And well, it's going to be quite a sight and quite a long story to tell, because the amount of corruption, mismanagement, and things that are typical for the era of the crisis and the 2000s in Spain, well, they're just amassed in that single place altogether. Right before we finish and right before we leave Ciudad Valdeluz, who knows, maybe for the last time ever, well, there's one more place to see. A place that tells you to take care of Valdeluz. The main roundabout that you enter the city through, and a gate that basically welcomes you to what was supposed to be one of the better places to live in Spain. And, well, it's quite a sight, to be honest. And it also tells a very sad story, and it just complements all the things that I have said about this place. Well, let's see it then. Well, and as promised and as said, this is the sign. A welcoming sign to the city, and a city that was never meant to be.